This is Jack Monahan from Stellar Jockeys, and I'm a huge fan of plasticity. So, what I wanted to do here was just show you some of my working method. Sorry, it's early, and I haven't recorded anything in a long time, so bear with me. Obviously, you can just mute this track and then look at the modeling. But what I'm setting up here, this is at 5 times normal speed, so it's not super duper sped up. This is a program that allows you to work very fast. And I think this is all I want to do. Some free advertisement is just to show you that plasticity is amazing. So right here, all we're doing is we've got the side profile, and now I'm giving some front to back curvature to the grip, and now I'm just going to do a cut in to have a sort of like tang, right, where the webbing of the the thumb and forefinger meet. I'm just going to add that detail in. Yeah, I just want to show you what plasticity is like. If you haven't used it before, I just don't do poly modeling anymore for hard surface stuff. So this is me just saying, hey, on a lark, I tried this. It was actually the day that ants had chewed through my internet. Well, it's life in Texas for you. Ants had chewed through my internet like routing on the outside of my house. Long story. But what it was is while the tech tried to figure out what was happening, I was suddenly without internet. And I remembered that I purchased this and hadn't tried it out yet. So, and I literally haven't looked back. It's so fast. It takes all the best stuff from CAD and applies it just for artist needs. So right here you can see I've grabbed a triangle and I'm setting this up because this weapon is a sort of a quasi railgun now. So you can see me briefly open up the actual other railgun, which is known as the Ryokan in Brigador Killers. This is a weapon being modeled for Brigador Killers. I'm looking at the Ryokan and I'm trying to figure out where I put the reference projectile, which is a 604 steel ball. I found it, and I'm going to use this to set up the cylinder. And because this is not a particularly high pressure and there's no powder charge here, I'm not going to make the cylinder very big at all either. So here I'm just sort of figuring out how I want to engineer the cylinder. This seems like overkill, and I guess it is, but when you move so fast, I mean, this whole recording is the span of a little bit over an hour. So even though this is 5 times the original speed, you can see what I'm doing, and it's nothing crazy. It's just that this program allows you to move very fast. So here I'm just going to cut the cylinders, or rather the what do you call it? The chambers for the cylinder that fit the 604 ball. And here I'm going to put a little sort of detent. So the notion here was to have a 3-shot or 3-shot revolver that fires 604 ball rounds, which means not a hopper full of 604, which is what you'd expect for something that fires tiny beads, but a sort of hand reloading revolver type action. So I've already in my head worked out that I'm going to put loading gates on either side. You see I have a very rudimentary sketch, and I've got an M16A1 receiver, an upper receiver, just to gut check my shapes, right? It's like when you're modeling a human head, getting your eyeballs, like all adult human eyeballs are within a certain size of one another, and all heads are within a certain size range. So guns are oddly kind of similar because they're bounded by the ergonomics of the human hand. So pull a gun into your scene and then use that as a basic reference point in terms of like webbing of the thumb and forefinger to trigger distance, that grip distance. That's what you need to know, right? Everything else you can kind of make up as you go along. As you see, the sketch is very rudimentary. What I'm going to do is create some ellipses to model out a trigger. Again, this is sped up, but not that much. Very fast. And then I remembered looking at the kind of relief. I believe an AR-15 trigger is cast. So I'm going to do the same thing. I should have kept my older guides, but just pop in another one. And I'm going to do a a radius fillet to get that kind of same profile. Not exactly, but roughly the same profile. And I'm going to do a little cut in. This is all the kind of detail that is just not seen, but it helps me feel like, the devil's in the details, right? So I put it in a, what is it intended as a bent steel trigger guard, and then I cut a hole for limiting the trigger. And now I'm trying to get the frame holding the cylinder. Originally I played with it being also triangular, but that doesn't really make sense. Revolvers tend to have a pretty flat walled cylinder. And the fun thing about building these guns for me in Plasticity is I can model faster than I can design, especially with my atrophied two-dimensional skills. So here all I'm saying is, okay, now we got a spur hammer, and I'm going to set it down to get ourselves the cut in for making sure there's room in the grip. And there you go. So now we've got a tall, again, never going to be seen in the render, but for me, the more I can just get into the design space of the weapon. Now I'm going to add the spurs, so we get a nice relief cut on the hammer, so it's nice and grippy. Just that easy, like a high power or a 1911. It's really just, to me, my problem is it's sometimes tough to get other tasks done on the game, just because I love modeling so much. It's not about having to ever really think about my geometry like at all. That's always what poly modeling was. You always have to be thinking constantly about edge flow and all this other stuff, and then eventually you'll get to making sure the design, and then oftentimes the design is compromised based on modeling concerns, and that's never the case for Plasticity. Very, very crazy geo has to be present for me to start to have to worry about modeling. So right now, again, I'm going inside out sort of approach. I always usually start with the grip and the trigger, those basic ergos, and then figure out where the chamber is and where the barrel is. And now I've got that mocked in. I'm basically just going to build this thing as if it were real. And so now we've got the sort of side plates that are going to hold in the trigger and the hammer. And we're going to get the revolver frame itself. It's an MTR. You have to forgive me, I don't remember. There's a Mateba, a revolver that I'm sort of, and so now so you can see here I got a little cylinder, which is going to be the relief cut into that. So with that's the feed ramp, right? So I just kept picturing sort of thumbing around in there, and now I'm going to put a plate in front of it, not for pressure, but just for basic retention. So you can see the back of the cylinder has these detents to hold around in place, and then you've got the plate in front of it to keep the balls from flying out the front of the cylinder. And it looked cool. So we still make sure to do rule of cool, but really the coolest of all, what's really cool is of course utility. So, and this is a very silly weapon, but weapons are not as all that rational as you've been led to believe, right? You notice that the Army, if given the option, given their druthers, the Army never adopts something that looks really ugly. They want it to be cool. It's not pure utility. So in here, so you notice just then I've got this bore axis slightly too low. Right along the kind of the pointer finger is the sort of ideal bore axis, and I play with an inset cut, and I just don't think it looks as good, so I discard it. And doing that kind of thing in Plasticity, making changes and then going back on big deletions and things that you made, super simple. So I'm just trying to rough in the rest of the revolver frame here. Again, not particularly high pressure, and I think the form and scale makes a lot of sense. Go back to my reference to see where we're doing, and now I'm going to build in the rest of the frame here. In a realistic, need case, I wouldn't have to have this big sort of barrel counterweight, other than needing to having something to hang the front sight post on. There's really nothing that needs to be out there, but it always looks good. Here's another easy trick to do inset pins, like trigger pins and hammer pins. I'll do that all day. I love the effect. It's so easy. And here we are. We're offsetting and extruding geometry to get more detail. Really couldn't, and getting a nice step down. Oftentimes I'd struggle with, like, especially on revolvers and semi-autos alike. You usually have certain places where the metal thins out because it's not load bearing. It's not pressure bearing. So toward the front of an automatics slide, the barrel tends to get a lot thinner and then fatter towards the chamber, because that's where all the pressure is. So here's a funny example, because it's not a super high pressure gun. I mean, it is kind of high pressure, but it doesn't have to manage the pressure of a rapidly expanding brass case. All we're doing is some kind of propellant. I moved away from this being a rail gun like some of the other designs, because I just didn't want everything to be a small rail gun, especially because this is meant to be sort of a cheaper kind of weapon. So, and in my head, I'm already thinking about a variant of a shorter snub nose kind of variant, and how I'm working on the selector lever. Again, roughly in an AR-15 style, but it's almost automatic. I can usually model faster than I can really think about which. I mean, sometimes is a problem, but that's why good reference and a good sort of mental vocabulary for this sort of stuff is very helpful. Now we're connecting the cylinder, which, could be compressed gas of some kind, could be a chemical, right? All we know is that whatever it does, it helps make sure we get our 604 steel bearings where they need to go. And then building up what, in this case, is not wood on a rifle would be the sort of the front trunnion, but again, we don't have a pressure bearing. And now I'm using a pipe to make a cut in. Love it. Plasticity is just, I can't say enough nice things about it. You can already see, this is, again, we're total modeling time on this is about an hour from what you're seeing. And even doing this very silly, from first principles kind of design. Oh, see, now we've got a front and rear post. I don't know if we had one crash. Occasionally you grab a couple of things and try to do certain operations, it'll crash, but it's so stable with the saves. I just start Plasticity again. In fact, I need to upgrade. I'm late on an upgrade, but keep looking at your model, keep looking it around. And now I want to do some sort of tubing that really helps suggest. And you just grab those points and then you fillet them. Fillet. I think everyone says fillet. Let's stop saying that word. I had this image of this very, the polygonal kind of faceted look to the cylinders, but with this sort of snaking pressure thing molded into it. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add them together, and then I'm going to smooth out the transition to kind of get this interesting shape I had in mind. And again, I could sketch it out, or I could just model it. And in this case, especially because I'm sort of I'm responsible. I'm on the hook is what the word I was looking for. I'm responsible for a lot of modeling on this game. So I choose speed, right? Just try and get this stuff done. So we've got that shape more or less incorporated and now I do privilege the sort of that front right kind of angle, because that's where the beauty render angle is in Brigador. So now I'm taking that corner off, because no sharp edges, especially on a loading area. Nothing to snag the bullets and nothing to snag your thumb as you feed rounds into the chamber. You can imagine the sound it makes. You stick a ball in each of those little chambers. Yep, more shape refinements. Just looking at, I want to have like for example that radius on the rear, and I'll start playing with the grip angle, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. But that's it. Thanks for watching.